let's learn some interesting facts about neural control and coordination from NCERT. As you know, the functions of the organ systems in our body must be coordinated to maintain homeostasis. Coordination is the process through which two or more organs interact and complement the functions of one another. For example, when we do physical exercises, the energy demand is increased for maintaining increased muscular activity. The supply of oxygen is also increased. The increased supply of oxygen necessitates an increase in the rate of respiration, heartbeat, and increased blood flow via blood vessels. When physical exercise is stopped, the activities of nerves, lungs, heart, and kidney gradually return to their normal conditions. Thus, the functions of muscles, lungs, heart, blood vessels, kidney, and other organs are coordinated while performing physical exercises. In our body, the neural system and the endocrine system jointly coordinate and integrate all the activities of the organs so that they function in a synchronized fashion. The neural system provides an organized network of point-to-point connections for quick coordination. The endocrine system provides chemical integration through hormones. In this chapter, you will learn about the neural system of humans, mechanisms of neural coordination like transmission of nerve impulse conduction across a synapse. 18.1 Neural system. The neural system of all animals is composed of highly specialized cells called neurons, which can detect, receive, and transmit different kinds of stimuli. The neural organization is very simple in lower invertebrates. For example, in Hydra, it is composed of a network of neurons. The neural system is better organized in insects, where a brain is present along with a number of ganglia and neural tissues. Vertebrates have a more developed neural system. 18.2 Human neural system. The human neural system comprises two parts, I, the central neural system, CNS, and II, the peripheral neural system, PNS. The CNS, consisting of the brain and spinal cord, serves as the center for information processing and control. The PNS includes all body nerves associated with the CNS. PNS nerve fibers come in two types. Afferent fibers transmit impulses from tissues organs to the CNS, while efferent fibers transmit regulatory impulses from the CNS to peripheral tissues organs. The PNS is divided into the somatic neural system, relaying impulses to skeletal muscles, and the autonomic neural system, transmitting impulses to involuntary organs and smooth muscles. The autonomic system further branches into the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. The visceral nervous system, part of the PNS, involves nerves, fibers, ganglia, and plexuses for impulses between the central and visceral organs. 18.3 Neuron as structural and functional unit of neural system. A neuron, the microscopic unit, comprises three major parts: cell body, dendrites, and axon, figure 18.1. The cell body contains cytoplasm with cell organelles and Nissel's granules, granular bodies integral to its structure. Short fibers, branching repeatedly and projecting from the cell body, also contain Nissel's granules and are known as dendrites. These fibers transmit impulses toward the cell body. The axon, a long fiber with a branched distal end, terminates as synaptic knobs with vesicles carrying neurotransmitters. Axons transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body to a synapse or neuromuscular junction. Neurons are classified based on axon and dendrite number. Multipolar, one axon, two or more dendrites found in the cerebral cortex. Bipolar, one axon, one dendrite, found in the eye's retina. And unipolar, cell body with one axon, usually in the embryonic stage. Axons come in two types: myelinated, enveloped by Schwann cells forming a myelin sheath with nodes of Ranvier, found in spinal and cranial nerves, and unmyelinated, enclosed by Schwann cells without a myelin sheath, common in autonomous and somatic neural systems. (18.3.1) Generation and conduction of nerve impulse. Neurons are excitable cells as their membranes are polarized. The membrane polarization is due to different ion channels present on the neural membrane, selectively permeable to various ions. At rest, the axonal membrane is more permeable to potassium ions, K+, and nearly impermeable to sodium ions, Na+. The membrane is also impermeable to negatively charged proteins in the axoplasm, resulting in a high concentration of K+ and negatively charged proteins and a low concentration of Na+ within the axon. Outside the axon, there's a low concentration of K+, high concentration of Na+, creating a concentration gradient. These ionic gradients are maintained by the sodium-potassium pump, transporting 3Na+ out for 2K+ into the cell. This creates a positive charge on the outer surface and a negative charge on the inner surface, polarizing the membrane. The electrical potential difference across the resting plasma membrane is termed the resting potential. You might be curious to know about the mechanisms of the generation of nerve impulse and its conduction along an axon. When a stimulus is applied at a site, figure 18.2 e.g. point A, on the polarized membrane, the membrane at the site A becomes freely permeable to Na+. This leads to a rapid influx of Na+, followed by the reversal of the polarity at that site, i.e., the outer surface of the membrane becomes negatively charged and the inner side becomes positively charged. The polarity of the membrane at the site A is thus reversed and hence depolarized. The electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane at the site A is called the action potential, which is, in fact, termed as a nerve impulse. At sites immediately ahead, the axon, e.g. site B, membrane has a positive charge on the outer surface and a negative charge on its inner surface. As a result, a current flows on the inner surface from site A to site B. On the outer surface, a current flows from site B to site A, figure 18.2, to complete the circuit of current flow. Hence, the polarity at the site is reversed, and an action potential is generated at site B. Thus, the impulse action potential generated at site A arrives at site B. The sequence is repeated along the length of the axon, and consequently, the impulse is conducted. The rise in stimulus-induced permeability to Na+ is extremely short-lived. It is quickly followed by a rise in permeability to K+. Within a fraction of a second, K+ diffuses outside the membrane and restores the resting potential of the membrane at the site of excitation, and the fiber becomes once more responsive to further stimulation. 18.32 Transmission of impulses. A nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another through junctions called synapses. A synapse is formed by the membranes of a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, which may or may not be separated by a gap called synaptic cleft. There are two types of synapses, namely electrical synapses and chemical synapses. At electrical synapses, the membranes of pre- and postsynaptic neurons are in very close proximity, allowing direct flow of electrical current between them. Transmission of an impulse across electrical synapses is similar to impulse conduction along a single axon and is always faster than that across a chemical synapse. Electrical synapses are rare in our system. At a chemical synapse, the membranes of the pre- and postsynaptic neurons are separated by a fluid-filled space called synaptic cleft, figure 18.3. Do you know how the presynaptic neuron transmits an impulse, action potential, across the synaptic cleft to the postsynaptic neuron? Chemicals called neurotransmitters are involved in the transmission of impulses at these synapses. The axon terminals contain vesicles filled with these neurotransmitters. When an impulse, action potential, arrives at the axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of the synaptic vesicles towards the membrane where they fuse with the plasma membrane and release their neurotransmitters in the synaptic cleft. The released neurotransmitters bind to their specific receptors, present on the postsynaptic membrane. This binding opens ion channels, allowing the entry of ions, which can generate a new potential in the postsynaptic neuron. The new potential developed may be either excitatory or inhibitory. 18.4 Central neural system. The brain is the central information processing organ of our body, serving as the command and control system. It regulates voluntary movements, body balance, functioning of vital involuntary organs, e.g. lungs, heart, kidneys, thermoregulation, hunger, and thirst. Additionally, the brain influences circadian rhythms, activities of endocrine glands, and human behavior. It processes vision, hearing, speech, memory, intelligence, emotions, and thoughts. The human brain is well protected by the skull, covered inside by cranial meninges, an outer layer called dura mater, a thin middle layer called arachnoid, and an inner layer, in contact with the brain tissue, called pia mater. The brain has three major parts: eye, forebrain, tui, midbrain, and tui, hindbrain, figure 18.4. 18.4.1 Forebrain. The forebrain includes the cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus, figure 18.4. The cerebrum forms the major part, divided longitudinally into left and right cerebral hemispheres by a deep cleft. These hemispheres connect through the corpus callosum. The cerebral cortex, covering the hemispheres, has prominent folds, and its grayish appearance earns the name gray matter. Neuron cell bodies give it color. The cerebral cortex contains motor areas, sensory areas, and association areas, responsible for complex functions like intersensory associations, memory, and communication. Fibers of the tracts covered with the myelin sheath constitute the inner part of the cerebral hemisphere, giving it an opaque white appearance, hence called the white matter. The cerebrum wraps around a structure called thalamus, a major coordinating center for sensory and motor signaling. Another crucial part of the brain, the hypothalamus, lies at the base of the thalamus. The hypothalamus houses centers controlling body temperature, the urge for eating and drinking, and neurosecretory cells secreting hypothalamic hormones. The inner parts of cerebral hemispheres, along with associated structures like amygdala, hippocampus, etc., form the limbic lobe or limbic system. This complex structure, along with the hypothalamus, is involved in regulating sexual behavior, expressing emotional reactions, e.g., excitement, pleasure, rage and fear, and motivation. 18.4.2 Midbrain. Located between the thalamus, hypothalamus, and pons, the midbrain contains the cerebral aqueduct. Its dorsal portion consists of 4 round swellings, lobes, called corpora quadrigemina. 18.43 Hindbrain. Comprising pons, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata, the hindbrain plays crucial roles. Pons has fiber tracts interconnecting different brain regions. The convoluted surface of the cerebellum accommodates more neurons. The medulla, connected to the spinal cord, contains centers controlling respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and gastric secretions. The brainstem, consisting of midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata, forms connections between the brain and spinal cord. The neural system coordinates and integrates functions, as well as metabolic and homeostatic activities of all the organs. Neurons, the functional units of the neural system, are excitable cells due to a differential concentration gradient of ions across the membrane. The electrical potential difference across the resting neural membrane is called the resting potential. The nerve impulse is conducted along the axon membrane in the form of a wave of depolarization and repolarization. A synapse is formed by the membranes of a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, which may or may not be separated by a gap called synaptic cleft. Chemicals involved in the transmission of impulses at chemical synapses are called neurotransmitters. The human neural system consists of 2 parts, I, central neural system, CNS, and T, the peripheral neural system. The CNS consists of the brain and spinal cord. The brain can be divided into 3 major parts, I, forebrain, T, midbrain, and I, hindbrain. The forebrain consists of the cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. The cerebrum is longitudinally divided into 2 halves connected by the corpus callosum. A very important part of the forebrain, the hypothalamus, controls body temperature, eating, and drinking. Inner parts of cerebral hemispheres and associated deep structures form a complex structure called the limbic system, concerned with olfaction, autonomic responses, regulation of sexual behavior, expression of emotional reactions, and motivation. The midbrain receives and integrates visual, tactile, and auditory inputs. The hindbrain comprises pons, cerebellum, and medulla. The cerebellum integrates information received from the semicircular canals of the ear and the auditory system. The medulla contains centers that control respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and gastric secretions. Pons consists of fiber tracts that interconnect different regions of the brain. Okay, we're done with the chapter revision. Now you have to take a look at the diagrams, tables, and highlighted lines. Best of luck.